Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Lisa and I'm the founder of My Pagan Pathworks. And if you're new to the channel, I really invite you to like and subscribe to help us grow. And if you're a returning subscriber, I thank you so very much for coming back to join me again. And in today's video, we are going to do another Tarot Tuesday exploration. And today's card is the Five of Swords. Now, before we get started talking about the Five of Swords, I'd like to do just a little bit of a review. And so, the swords in general are about our ability to communicate and our intellect, but they also represent human conflict and that arise from our ability to communicate or our lack of ability to communicate. And so, they can represent our own internal conflict, or they can represent conflict with others. Like the major arcana, I really believe that the minors also follow a progression as you progress from ace to king through the minor suites. And with the swords in general, with the ace, we see absolute pure logic. With the two, we see logic and emotion and how that is balanced. With the three, we see the marriage between logic and emotions and how much conflict that can bring. And with the fours, we see a resting period where we reset from the struggle between our emotions and our logic. This progression is more or less the higher meaning of the cards and can help you as you're trying to interpret the meaning of the cards in a spread. So, before we explore the meaning of the Five of Swords, I would like to show you an example of the Five of Swords. So the first one, this one is from the Rider deck. This one is from the Hanson-Roberts deck. This one is from the Secrets of the Tarot. This one is from the Celtic Tarot. And lastly, this one is from the Tarot Draconis. Now, as you can see from the images, the imagery on the cards is very similar throughout all the decks. The Tarot Draconis is just a little bit different, but if you'll notice in this card, 3 of the swords are lit and 2 are dark. And this 3-to-1 ratio is also, it is carried out throughout all the cards in that you will see the character is holding 3 of the swords and 2 of the swords are on the ground. So that 3-2 ratio is pretty much prevalent throughout all the decks. So the images on the Rider deck in particular can help us with the interpretation of the card. When you think in terms of personal development, the 3 men on there's 3 men on this card, and they go from small, medium, and large. And it's a progression, and this progression can represent personal growth. It's an individual's personal growth. And the Ultimate Guide to the Rider-Waite book looks at, and there's also this, most of them have that backward glance. And in the Rider-Waite book, the way they describe that backward glance is it's either being arrogant or wishing the people behind them ill will, or it's a regard for others or a high regard for that personal growth. I personally tend to look at that backward glance as an assessment. And you have to look at your mistakes that you made in your past before you can go forward into growth. So that brings us to the meaning of the 5 in the progression of the suites. So the 5 is about personal growth. We took time to assess things in the 4, and now we are applying that reality. We're applying that to our reality. To me, the more you grow as a person, the stronger you get mentally. And this is what ties the card to the Kabbalah meaning of 5. The 5s in the Kabbalah are tied to the Geburah, Geburah, the Geburah Sephiroth, and that Geburah means strength. It is the energy that creates. It is the will of the universe acting through the natural laws of nature. So in the case of the 5 of Swords, in relation to the Kabbalah, it is our own will that is using the power of our intellect to grow. However, the numerology meaning of 5 is the more commonplace interpretation of the 5 of Swords. The 5s in numerology represent conflict, imbalance, and testing and action. That's what the 5s mean in numerology. In the upright position, this card is really about cutting your losses. That backward glance is an assessment that tells you that this situation is not evenly balanced, and it's time to take what remains and bail out while you still have the upper hand. And it's that holding those 3 swords with the 2 on the ground, you have the majority. That's what gives you the upper hand. This could be a conflict of perspectives. It could be a conflict of ideas. It could be unfair rumors. It could be false gossip. It doesn't really matter. The opponent in this situation it's not an even match. That opponent in this situation is prepared to deal with you in a sneaky, underhanded way. So the best approach to the issue would be to cut them loose and walk away. And so the 5s in this Suite of Swords are like, it's cut your losses. And so it does kind of tie into the higher meaning with the personal growth perspective, because I don't believe that we would be able to really acknowledge or be able to discern when it was time to cut our losses and move on if we weren't focused on our own personal growth. We have to have the wisdom and knowledge in place first before we are able to discern any given situation is not healthy and it's unbalanced. And so, to me, you have to use wisdom gained to assess any situation, but especially when you're dealing with conflicts. So when you're talking about this card in reverse, I believe there are 2 ways that you can view this card. First, I believe in terms of conflict, the 5 in reverse brings it into that conflict. You've either lost or you've cut your losses and you've walked away. And here's where you take a step back and really look hard at what happened. If you suffered the loss, here's where you need to take a step back and see why that happened. Second, you need to examine your own behavior. When you get this card in reverse, you are fighting against your own personal growth. You've let yourself become stagnant, and now the odds are stacked against you instead of with you. You are the 2 swords that are on the ground. In order to turn the tide, you've got to clear your head and take a hard look at any situation before you can move forward again. Above all, you've got to be honest with yourself and take responsibility for your part in any kind of loss that you've encountered or any kind of situation. You've got to be able to own up to your own responsibility in that situation. So that about sums it up for the Five of Swords. I hope that you enjoyed this video and that it has helped you with learning the tarot just a little bit more. And I hope you'll join me next week as we explore the Six of Swords. And thank you again so much for watching, and have a good evening.